Hello and welcome back. This is part 3 of Unit 9 UGC NET JRF Forensic Science. In this part, we will talk about ink, paper and their examination. So, the various types of writing instruments are on which we can write our paper, leaves, metals, etc., with which we can write pen, pencil, etc., and the ink, blood, plant juice, chemicals, these are used for the writing purposes. Starting with the various types of pens. So ball pens are invented in 1800, but they are mass produced in 1945. Ball pen consists of small rotating ball which acts as an ink reservoir. The ink used in ball pen is a viscous paste-like material. The identifying features of ball pen are skipping. Sometimes the ink does not pass through the rolling ball, so the strokes lack ink. So this is known as skipping. And another one is gooping, when there is more deposit of ink in the letter. Another type are porous tip pens, which are also known as fiber tip pens, nylon tip pens, red pens, synthetic tip pens, etc. So these show uniformity in the strokes and the spreading of ink is smooth. The identifying features of porous tip pens are the pen writes with the capillary action. So, and also the ink used is fluid in nature. Now, roller pens. Roller pens are ball pens with fluid ink. So, the ink from a roller pen is generally broad with tapered beginning and ending strokes. Pencil, just like ball pen, it has rounded point. It is smooth so that it enables the writer to write faster. But this the pencil reveals less about the pen, the lifts, pauses, etc. Fountain pens have two flexible nibs. That is why the lines vary in depth based on the pressure applied during writing or the flexibility of the points. Now the writing surface. So the oldest writing surface is the bark of the herb known as papyrus, and uh, paper production from cellulose content of plants was discovered after 105 AC in China. He made the paper, Mr. Sai Lun made the paper by using old cuttings of some paper, cannabis fibers and mineral fibers. Now, what are the other requirements for making paper? So, mechanical beating of the wood was done to form a lump-like material. Sizing agents are added to provide cellular strength to the paper. These sizing agents can be rosin, starch, animal gelatin, aluminum hydroxide, and synthetic polymers. Loading agents are used to provide proper weight to the paper. Examples are aluminum silicate like kaolin, magnesium silicate like talcum, calcium sulfate or gypsum, and calcium carbonate. About ink, so it is composed of solvents, pigments, dye, resins, lubricants, solubilizer, surfactant, particulate matter, fluorescents, and other materials. The basic components of ink are coloring, vehicle, additives, and carrier substances. The ingredients of vehicles or binders are pH modifiers, humectants to reduce premature drying of the ink, polymeric resin to impart binding and allied properties, defoamer or anti-foaming agent to regulate foam efficiency, wetting agents such as surfactants to control surface properties, biocides to inhibit bacterial and fungal growth, and thickeners or archaeology modifiers to control ink application. The printing ink contains color imparted by pigments instead of dyes. What is the difference between pigments and dyes? Pigments are insoluble whereas dyes are soluble. Most red writing inks have the component red dye eosin. Blue color from triphenylmethane dyes. Permanent ink mostly contains iron sulfate, gallic and tannic acid as well as dyes. Iron tannin gives blue color due to the presence of indigo dye, but it turns black due to its oxidation. Ballpoint ink is a viscous paste containing 40-50% dye. Most white inks contain titanium dioxide, but due to the toxicity of heavy metals, the substitutions are inorganic pigments such as chrome yellow, molybdenum orange, cadmium red with organic pigments, and carbon black replaced spile black, rutile black, and iron black in black inks. Black ink contains iron galatinate. Now the details about the ingredients of ink. Pigment can be organic as well as inorganic. Organic pigments are identified using a color index system which give details about the color shade, structural and chronological details of the pigment. For example, for the blue pigment copper phthalocyanin blue, the code is color index system code is PB15. Pigment is dry, powdery in nature and it resists fading. Other are dispersants which can be surfactants and polymers. Resins or polymers improve binding capacity. Humectants retard premature drying, which we have already discussed. Defoamers and antifoaming agent, wetting agent enhance contact with the substrate. pH modifiers are usually the amine derivatives. Biocides and bacteriostats to prevent bacterial and fungal damage, and vehicle. Now the ink of various pens. So ballpoint pen ink is usually oil based. So that is why it dries quickly and is permanent. Like you must have seen gel pen ink. If the page get wet, so the ink will be spread. The ink will spread. But in case of ball pen, it is not like that because it is oil based. So as the rhodomine B in ballpoint pen ink degrades, it loses ethyl group and the ethyl group will be replaced by H atoms. So that is why blobbing or blotchy residues you might have seen on the edge of the ballpoint pen, or when you write with the ballpoint pen, they are also present on the hands of the writer. The ink accumulation. This is due to the thinning of the ball pen ink because of the friction of pen against the paper. Fountain pen ink is water-based ink in which dye is used. Gel pen ink is a pigment suspended water-based ink and it is opaque and thick in appearance. Nigrosin ink is obtained from coal tar. The Indian ink, it consists of amorphous carbon in the form of lamp black. It is made into a cake-like structure with the water, liquid or glue in it. The color of this ink vary from dark brown to blue-black. Carbon ink or Indian ink is the oldest form of ink. It is invented in China but mostly consumed in India. It is most common in India. That is why it is known as Indian ink. Fountain pen ink. First one is blue black permanent ink in which the iron compound concentration is half and the dye stuff would be more. And non-staining ink does not contain iron salts. They are only synthetic. They contain only synthetic dye stuff. Ballpoint pen ink is based on polyethylene glycols of suitable viscosity. They are non-hygroscopic, and the dye stuff is of high tinctorial powder. Polyethylene glycol based pen inks starts replacing oil based inks in 1952. Logwood ink, it is obtained by mixing chromium salt with aqueous extract of logwood chips. Iron gall ink is purple black or brown black ink made from iron salt and tannic acid from vegetable sources. Indelible ink, electrol ink or phosphoric ink is the semi-permanent ink. It is used during election time. It is composed of silver nitrate and used to mark the voters. When it is applied, it is blue in color, but the silver nitrate gets oxidized and it will turn into black. The ink analysis, physical examination is done by alternate light sources such as UV to compare fluorescence and IR to differentiate dyes and pigments. Chemical examination, chromatographic analysis for isolation and characterization of inks. This will be discussed in detail later. VSC. In VSC, the examination is done on the basis of absorption spectrometry in visible and infrared light range. Ink analysis by TLC or thin layer chromatography. The solvent system would be ethyl acetate, absolute ethanol and distilled water in the ratio 75 is to 35 is to 30, or N-butanol, pyridine and water in the ratio 3 is to 1 is to 1.5. The extraction of ballpoint pen ink is done using pyridine, whereas for fountain pen ink, uh, equal proportions of water and ethanol are used for extraction. The non-destructive methods I have already discussed: alternate light source, VSC, photography and microscopic comparison. Thank you for watching. For more such videos, like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel Vidhi Vigyan.